Hey guys, welcome to the very first edition of Functional Friday. My name is Dr. Kirk Mason here at Premier Chiropractic, improving movement, function, and health. Today, for the very first installment, we're going to be talking about what's called the functional model. Now, this is a model that's being incorporated by chiropractors, physical therapists, strength and conditioning specialists all over the world. And in my opinion, it's the model that gives patients the best results. Okay? Now, when we look at this model in blue, there's three different pillars to this model that we want to make sure are all functioning properly and functioning together. The first one is called your passive system. Now, by passive, it means you don't control that. So it's things like joints, bones, ligaments. You're not actively controlling how your joints move or how your bones are or how your ligaments are. You don't have conscious control over how those things function. Okay, so that's your passive system. The second part there is your active system, and that would be your muscles. Okay, so you can consciously contract a muscle. Say I'm contracting my bicep here. You can tell your body to do that. Now, your elbow joint is a joint. That's in the passive system, and it is not controlled by you. It's controlled by the muscle pulling on the bone, and then that joint movement needs to occur in between bones. Okay, so those are the first two pillars. And then the third pillar on top here is your control system, which is your central nervous system, or your brain telling your body how to function, okay, and how to move. All right, so your brain tells your muscle to contract, and then that joint allows that movement to happen. When we talk about the passive system, the main thing we talk about is the joint system, because joints can get stuck, can get locked up and stop moving properly, and then that in turn alters the muscular system or the active system and the control system. Okay, so these three have to work in unison for proper movement to happen. Okay? As we come down here to this timeline, we're basically looking at a typical patient progression and how they're going to get rid of their problem. Okay? The first thing, typically in a chiropractic clinic, a patient's going to come in pain. Okay? Not all the time, and not that they should just come in when they're in pain, but that's typically when we see a patient is when they're in pain. And what we know is that pain alters functional movement or motor control, which is just, again, your brain telling your body how to move. Okay, so those two can go back and forth because altered functional movement can also lead to pain. So there's a continuum there of these two that they kind of go hand in hand. Now, to get you to a state of normal functional movement or as optimal functional movement as is possible, first you need mobility and then you need stability. Okay? Mobility is the required range of motion through your joints to be able to perform a certain task. Okay? So that's first of all getting the range of motion in the joints. All right? The second is making sure the muscles and the tissues surrounding that have that required range of motion also. Once you get that required range of motion, then you can start stabilizing other areas of your body, things like your core. So if we look at like a hip joint's like a ball and socket joint like this. Now, if you're really, really tight around your hips, you're going to end up moving more in your low back. So first thing, you need to get that range of motion in your hips. Second, you can start to stabilize your core, which will then in turn stabilize your low back. And we'll talk about that more in later videos, a lot of these concepts, but it just gives you kind of a basic outline there. Okay, so then you're going to reach what's called normal functional movement, or as close to normal functional movement as you can get. Okay, people have anatomic limitations and things of that nature, so we just want to make sure that your movement is the best we can get. From that point, you can worry about strength and power, which is where more of a strength and conditioning specialist would come in. Okay, so all of these things need to be working together in order for someone to move properly and prevent injury and prevent bigger problems later on down the road as they age. Okay? That's all I have for you today. This is just a basic outline of the model that I love and I use in clinic. I think it gives patients the best chance to get the best results. Okay? Now, if you haven't checked out our Facebook page, check it out. It's Premier Chiropractic, located here in Minot, North Dakota. It's me, Dr. Kirk Mason, with Dr. Becky Perry-Domries, who specializes in seeing pregnancy and pediatric patients. So check out our Facebook page. You can also check out our website, which is premierchiropracticnd.com. So go on, check that out. We got some cool videos on there, a few different write-ups, so you can check that out. And then if you have a problem, make sure to give us a call and get into the clinic now before it becomes a bigger problem later on. Thank you guys for tuning in, and everyone have a great day.